Ever been in a relationship where you think like, ooh, we're all on the same page financially, and then you find out that the narcissistic person was hiding money from you? I'm sure many of you have, so let's take that on. Welcome back to the Money series, where we're going to talk about all kinds of issues related to narcissistic people and money. This could be partners, this could be family members, this could be business partners, this could be friends. But it's all about how narcissistic relationships are affected around money. Now, lying and narcissism go together like jam and toast. You can count on them being together. You can count on it happening. And goodness knows, we also have other videos on this channel on narcissistic lying. Narcissistic people lie to preserve their egos. They lie because they want to get away with something. And they lie because they felt they want to get away with something that they felt entitled to do in the first place. They lie because they don't want to be called out. In essence, they lie to make themselves look better than they are. So obviously, when it comes to something as big ticket as money, they lie because it is often the most important thing to them, or at least one of the most important things to them. And they need it. They need it to get admiration, to get validation, to get power, to get all the stuff that keeps them going, feeds that grandiose need to be better than everyone else, and to manage that insecurity. Now, all of that translates into a greater likelihood of them hiding money from you and from other people as well. Now, this dynamic can happen in any number of narcissistic relationship situations. Most commonly, it happens in an intimate relationship, but it can also happen within a family setting or in a workplace situation as well. I am not a money expert, nor am I a grifter, so I am definitely not an expert on how one would hide money. But where I have observed the tendency towards narcissistic money hiding most profoundly is obviously in narcissistic divorces. Once the narcissistic person sees the writing on the wall, and often way before that happens, they start hiding money. Small amounts to start, and then bigger amounts. In financially clever narcissistic people, they may get good at setting up shell companies, moving money to offshore banks, tying it up in some other forms of investment or wealth. People may hide money. They may enable family members who enable them to help them shroud the money as well. I have never understood why narcissistic people get married. They are so weird about money. And marriage, in most parts of the United States, at least where I am, results in something called community property, which means that if the whole thing falls apart, that narcissistic person is going to have to share their money unless the other person makes more. And for a narcissistic person, having to pay spousal support after the marriage is done, or having to fork over what they believe are their personal assets, is akin to ripping their nose off their face without anesthesia. For this reason, people like forensic accountants are often essential in narcissistic divorces when people actually have a decent amount of money. And even then, I tell most of my clients, you could probably set a clock on the idea that this narcissistic person definitely hid some money. Do what you can, but don't waste more time and money and psychological energy trying to make the division of assets fair. The whole thing wasn't fair. The relationship wasn't fair. The whole thing was a mess. And you could waste years fighting this fight and this game of hide and seek around their money, and probably waste even more on legal and other accounting fees. Sometimes people wonder why narcissistic people hide money. Certainly for all of the psychological reasons I already shared, the entitlement and all of that, but also sometimes they do it for practical reasons. Maybe the narcissistic person is having an affair and they're giving money to or spending money on their lover. They know somebody might hide money because they know they want out of the marriage and they're getting their ducks in line. In family situations where money is being hid, they may be aware that the parents are willing to let them control some of the money and they see an easy pathway in to taking more than their fair share. In a business situation, the narcissistic person sees the business bank account as their own sort of personal slush fund, or they get into debts, bad investment, gambling debts, and they want to take care of them, and they hide the shame without anyone knowing by using these business assets to pay off these other bills that they incurred. These are some of the practical reasons that you might see a narcissistic person, or any person, frankly, hide money as well. Now, as I have noted in other videos in this series, because narcissistic people are so intense and so controlling about money, many times people in relationships with them will pull back and let the narcissistic person manage the money, which then makes it easier for them, the narcissistic person, to hide money. Now, obviously, hiding money happens in other situations as well. For example, a narcissistic sibling may really try to win over or manipulate older parents and start siphoning off and hiding money, or taking allocations of money from a family trust, or claiming they're being used to help the parents and they're not. A narcissistic business partner may skim and hide cash from the business. The reason they get away with it is this Pollyanna-ish benefit of the doubt, the unseeing, unaware, enably childlike drive to want to believe that people aren't like this. It feels so cynical that to think about narcissism is a rather grim view on human nature. I could sit here all day and share with you the stories of people whose financial future was destroyed permanently by the sleight of hand of a narcissistic person in their life who hid the money, spent it on what they needed for, and then it was gone forever, and they got away with it. Obviously, there's only one real antidote to this, and that is that you need to stay on top of your money, or any money that relates to you. In family with shared monies, it's important to ask to see the financial statements regularly. In businesses, if you're in a business setup with someone, don't just offload the bookkeeping and accounting and just forget about it. Pay attention to it. It's a pain in the ass, it takes time, but it is essential. Sometimes you'll see that the narcissistic person in your midst will try to stop you. They'll either rage at you, and they'll say, hey, you don't need to look at that. You don't even know what you're looking at. You don't know how to read a balance sheet. Or they'll do the opposite. They will try and appease and manipulate you and say, hey, listen, we have this all under control, and you have such other far more important things to do than waste your time on this silly accounting. Like, your creativity is what you bring to this company. The fact is that if you push financial transparency too much in an intimate relationship with a narcissist or with a business partner, especially if you do this early on, they may cut and run earlier, which is actually great because you just saved yourself a world of hurt. In a family, it may be more complicated since you may have been in that system since childhood. But as everyone gets older and you ask to see the financials early, not even to benefit yourself, but perhaps to make sure your parents are protected, it may guide a greater likelihood of bringing in objective players into this, like trust administrators, while older parents are still mentally in a place where they can get the guidance and a narcissistic family member hasn't already started shaking down the system and getting what they want. The family financial hiding is so much more complicated in this way because it's a system you've always been in. And as life goes on, your parents might want to maintain their autonomy. Money in a narcissistic relationship is all but guaranteed to be a fraught, confused, deceptive, and harmful space. They will hide it, but the question is whether you want your life to be an egg hunt where you have to keep wondering where it is. So if you have any tales of hiding money that have happened to you, you feel comfortable sharing them, I think people would benefit from hearing it. But like I said, hiding money by narcissistic folks for their own purposes is a relatively common dynamic. Thanks again.